You know, one thing that's very true is when you start studying religion or philosophy, you can be sure that lust and greed or the vices are going to come into play or come into conversation at some point. And in my younger days, I never really understood that. I always thought that was so annoying. I was like, what's wrong with these things? They're natural and normal for us, and life couldn't go on without them. And well, 40 years has passed for me since those ideas. And I think about it now. I was just reading today in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and there's an actor who had just finished putting on a show, and Ramakrishna was actually complimenting him on his good job and on the theater troops, uh, excellent music, and how the rhythms and all of the aspects of the performance were great. And so the actor is granted a question, and so he asks Ramakrishna. He says, "Sir, what is the difference between lust and desire?" And Ramakrishna answers, "Lust is like the root of the tree, and desires are the branches and the twigs." And he goes on to say that a man cannot see God unless he gives his whole mind to Him. The mind is wasted on lust and greed. And he starts talking to the actor about his own situation there. And as I kind of thought about that, because he says in another place that all of Maya, that all of this world, this world that we experience, that we live in, he says that really at the root of all of it is lust and greed. That without those, there's no manifestation in this world. And I began thinking about it, and it's really true when he says that lust is the root, and desires, these other types of desires, are like the twigs and the branches of the tree. Really, all of the other desires come out of lust, right? It's because of lust that we're concerned about whether someone's a man or a woman. It's because of lust that we're concerned about whether somebody is handsome, beautiful, or ugly. It's because of lust that we worry about people's finances, whether they're rich or poor. We don't want to be going beneath our star or things like that. So lust causes us to judge and to measure each other in all kinds of really unhelpful ways, make us draw conclusions about each other in unhelpful ways, and then consequently treat each other. The other aspect, too, that I did a lot of thinking on, especially when I was really dealing with these things as a mainstay in my life, is, in my younger days, I really didn't try to control any of these things. I really gave them free rein in my life. And one thing that I really learned from that is that there is no fulfilling lust. The more that it's like throwing gasoline on a grease fire. It's like the more experience you have with it, the more you want. And just like all of the other desires, as I studied them and learned from them, I came to know that your desires get refined. They become harder and harder to attain as you go on. If you fall into lust, not just any person will do. You'll start changing your behaviors to make yourself more attractive and to get the fruits of your desire. So you'll start going to the gym and whatnot, and at the beginning when I first started doing that, when someone first starts doing that, they think, oh, then everybody will be attracted to me and I'll have my choice of people. And the problem with that is that that's not true, because when you start going to the gym, you'll start narrowing your field of possibilities to people who go to gyms. And the more beautiful you become, the people start falling out of their eligibility, because you will only, engage with people of a certain look or a certain quality. And so as you become more experienced in your vices, the more selective your vices become, the more energy it takes to track them down and find them, and the more difficult it becomes to get exactly what you're looking for. And that can become very specific over time. So I caution you, even though it's very popular to tisk this talk about morality and lust and greed and these things, that those are for the religious or for the old-minded, as it were. I caution you, these teachings are thousands of years old, and it's not just because of some inherent bias against sex or against enjoyment. It's not that at all. Vivekananda says that all of our self-control and our spiritual practices will teach us how to enjoy the world without getting caught in it, you see. And the method of getting caught in it is exactly what I just finished describing. You know, that if you train yourself to be fulfilled by your vices, by your desires, your material desires, fine for a time, you know. But as you get to middle age, those desires will have narrowed and become very specific and more difficult to find and more energy. And you'll, as you age, will have less and less energy. There's no more going out to the clubs for your hunt for the whole night. You know, I'm talking a little bit more edgy than I normally do. If that bothers you, forgive me. I'm just trying to be honest about these things. But you know that if you train yourself to get your pleasures from the world, you know what happens when you're 60, 70, 80 years old, when you really can't get out of the house anymore. You can't. You're not beautiful. You're not attractive at any acceptable level. Your body is not winning any awards. You know, and you've trained yourself to find your satisfaction there. Where will you be then? You know, this is why spiritual life tells you to build that beautiful shrine in the heart, to find it, that it exists there of its own accord, that your body is in fact a temple of the Spirit, and to find your joy there. Know that this joy, which is not of the senses, which is transcendent and reliable, it's, you know, once you find it and once you've developed it, it's theirs, it's yours forever. It's not conditional, it's not circumstantial. And so that's why, you know, I remember one of my friends was an elder care person, and he took care of this woman who was very, very wealthy in San Francisco. I won't tell you any more details because there's only one of her. And she owned many properties, even had her home up on Billionaires Row, a gorgeous mansion. And he said it was the saddest thing because she was so sick. She had spent her whole life, you know, living in numerous houses and going to these socialite get-togethers, gatherings, and events. And in her last couple of years, she couldn't even get out of bed. So even though she owned like 7 mansions, she couldn't even get out of one room. And even though they were all decorated, you know, to the hilt, she never saw more than her bed. And you know, he said she was very bitter. And he said he did walk into conversations with family members outside of her room who were talking about who was going to get what and how much longer she was going to be around. And this is the end game of running after lust and greed, name and fame. You know, they're fun in your early days, although they bring a lot of trouble with them, I have to say, but easily overlooked when you're young. But if you build your life on them, you know, it's going to be very difficult for you to have an old age of peace. So take the warnings, do your best, try and look beyond and find something lasting in yourself, something that's not conditional. Look for that part of you that does not change. That's an interesting pursuit. Try and find that within you which does not change, and be free from these things, so that if it ever comes to the situation where you can't leave a bed in a room, that somehow you will have worked out an inner life that makes that all right, that you'll be just fine in that one bed, in that one room, on your last days. Find your freedom.